So, Jay, I have a new Armie Hammer joke.
Oh. You gotta get this out before the big news breaks.
What did Armie Hammer say to his ex-wife when she discovered that he had put a can of Coke in the oven?
I don't know.
I'm baking soda. This is Mike and Jay Talk About.
Yeah, and since there's confusion, people say, well, why isn't this just a half in the bag? The difference being that these are short, and we're not going to go into great detail or spoilers. Just a short recommendation for something that you very possibly have never heard of.
Right. It should really be called Mike and Jay Recommend, because most times it is a recommendation. But when we sit together in our classy room, surrounded by our favorite toys,
like good man children.
And this is not just a gremlin statue.
It's not a replica.
It is an actual gremlin that appeared in Gremlins 2, the new batch, and we know exactly where he appeared in the film. I found it. It's time to talk about Kid Detective, one of my favorite films so far this year.
The Kid Detective.
The Kid Detective.
Yeah.
And it's been a short year, I recognize that, but it's one of my favorite. It came out in 2020. It premiered at the TIFF Toronto International Film Festival, because it's a Canadian film.
Whenever I see a movie shot in Canada, I can usually tell by some of the supporting actors, like, because they all use the same actors. I'll be watching a movie and I'll be like, I recognize that guy, and I'll look it up and he's in like 15 other Canadian movies. Yeah. His dad in this movie, I was like, who is that guy? I recognized him and I couldn't figure it out, and then I realized he was in Land of the Dead. George Romero's Land of the Dead, which was shot in Canada.
What's in the bags?
Money.
Whose money?
Watch out, get down, quick!
Wasn't Land of the Dead what Armie Hammer was going to call his hotel that he's renovating? I wished we had watched The Kid Detective for our last half in the bag, because there's a lot of similarities between Kid Detective, Promising Young Woman, and Psycho Gorman. First being that Adam Brody is in Promising Young Woman, and we could talk about the varying degrees of comedy, tone,
yes,
and the delicate balance, as I said,
yes,
of dark humor, comedy. Kid Detective nails it perfectly.
I used to be loved. I used to be a kid detective.
We're all really counting on you.
I was so far ahead of the game. But one day I just woke up behind.
This movie, yeah, as far as balancing that tone of comedy, of dark comedy, perfect. Yeah. Perfect and very deadpan. And I gotta say, because you recommended that I watch this. You're like, you watch this movie, Kid Detective. And I'd seen the thumbnail for it, you know, on streaming services and stuff. And I was like, what is this movie? And the plot synopsis for it sounded exactly like a movie, speaking of broad comedy, a movie that came out like a decade ago called Mystery Team with Donald Glover. It's very similar. It's him and two other friends that they were like the Hardy Boys type solved mysteries when they were little kids. Now they're on the verge of graduating high school, and they get a real case to solve a murder. So almost the exact same kind of setup, but much, much different tone.
Yeah.
This movie is, Adam Brody. It kind of reminded me of the Royal Tenenbaums, where we get little montages of him as a kid and him solving all these mysteries, like who stole the fundraising money at school and little things like that. And then you cut to him now, and he's like an alcoholic. His life's pathetic, and he's still getting these chintzy little jobs. A woman comes to him about her missing cat again. Keeps losing her cat. So the setup reminded me a lot of Royal Tenenbaums, where it's like now this one's prodigy is now kind of a pathetic has-been.
It's like when you take one of those little kid shows, detective, the Olsen and Olsen Mystery Agency, And you
That
flash.
should be what the Olsen twins do to come back to acting.
That would be great.
They make a Netflix movie where they're all grown-up Olsen mystery team.
The Olsen Mystery Agency. We'll solve any crime by dinner time. They come back 20 years later, you know, and they're still doing the thing.
Whoa! Give us a mystery. Oh, yeah. Give us a mystery. We need a mystery.
Well, I gotta say, for the first maybe half of this movie, like I was enjoying it. I thought it was pretty good as far as like a dark comedy goes, but I wasn't, at that point, I wasn't sure why you were so like gung-ho about it. You see him throughout the movie, he's not a very good detective, which lends to the humor, but it was like, well, that contradicts what we see of him as a little kid. But then as the story goes along in the second half, it all starts to make perfect sense. And then the movie takes a drastic shift in tone.
Yes.
And has one of the most amazing payoffs I've seen in a movie in a while.
Yes.
As far as tipping the balance of the tone to something much darker, but also something that makes the rest of the movie make so much more sense.
And it's interesting, too, the director is a guy named Evan Morgan, and I looked him up. Maybe first feature. He's directed a couple of things, and they're like shorts. He acted as like a child actor in a couple of things.
Oh.
You always say when someone comes out of the gate and they're very sure-handed about like what they're doing, and it's not like, oh, this doesn't work, this is weird, this is messed up, and then you get to that scene, the scene at the end, where everything kind of comes together, and it's handled with such like precision in terms of the dramatic execution of it.
Yes.
And then at the very last frame of the movie, I never laughed so hard at them. Like, I'm like, how do you fix what you've done?
Yeah.
How do you end this movie? How do you fix what you've done? And it was done perfectly.
Well, and it's a laugh of surprise, because it doesn't seem like it's going to end on a humorous note.
Right.
Like you're talking about that balance of the tones.
Yeah, we always talk about editing, and we talk about how sometimes when you're editing something, removing a frame will change something.
Oh, sure.
And the editor knew the exact moment to reveal the end title. And then you've got the, is it Sugartown? Nancy Sinatra.
I don't know the song.
It's the song that's playing over. It plays throughout the movie, I think, but it's like this campy 1960s kind of like goofy song that's just clashes with what's happening on the screen, and it's fucking expertly done.
Yes, and just a generally interesting mystery. Mm-hmm. It has that kind of that film noir, hard-edged, hard-drinking detective trope in the hands of this. It's kind of a coming-of-age story. This young man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
A late coming-of-age story.
Right.
It's difficult to accept the difference between who you are in your head and who you are in the world.
The humor comes from the fact that, like, all the flashbacks and stuff when he's a kid, he's solving, except for one. There's one part that's a little dark in the flashbacks, but he's solving who stole the fundraiser money. And then there's one shot where the kid goes, there's some blood on my dad's car. And hard cut to the police taking the dad out of the house. Yeah. That's the only thing that's a little out of place in the flashbacks. But for the most part, Kid Detective solved kind of minor kid-related crimes.
Right.
And his secretary is the mayor's daughter, and she works for Soda Pop, and it's all cutesy and stuff like that. And then
it's brighter too. Like more like the colors are more saturated in the flashback stuff.
Yeah, and it's a little more desaturated and depressing in real life, as it should be. But
it's never played too broad. It's all so understated and like I said, deadpan.
Yeah.
Everything with him, like Adam Brody, his performance. I've seen him in stuff he's always like a supporting actor and everything. I don't know if he's ever been a lead before.
He's always been one of those people that have popped in and out of stuff that I've never really known where he's come from. And so I did some research because he was in, of course, he's in Promising Young Woman, bit role. He's in Shazam.
Oh, yeah.
He's the grown-up version of the weakling asthmatic kid in Shazam. Not the grown-up, the
When he turns into
superpowered
superhero,
version. And, you know, he's in a ton of stuff. And then I was like, was he on The Hills? He got his start like in some kind of like teeny bopper program.
Oh, yes.
Way back when.
The OC, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I was like, was he on The Hills? And then he was on the Gilmore Girls briefly as like a reoccurring
he just shows
character.
up in things.
And then throughout after that, it was just like lots of little stuff, but roles here and there, but never truly like a major lead.
Yeah.
As far as I could remember, just briefly looking through his IMDb. Adam Brody was in the OC, and there's a guy named Brody Jenner.
Oh no.
Who was in The Hills. And so I was like, hey, sure. Like that whole like early 2000s to 2010s period of my life, I wasn't watching TV, especially MTV teen dramas.
Sure.
So it's all like osmosis, like floating around in the ether around my head. Yeah. And I'm like, Adam Brody is from Dawson's Creek, The Hills, the OC, I don't know. And so I had my Brody wires crossed.
That's understandable.
But he's great in this.
Yeah, he's a great for this role. He's perfect. That understated, just always like half hungover. It's kind of like the detective, like that trope of the hard-edged detective.
The detective that wanders into his office and his secretary says, "There's a lady waiting for you in your office." Oh, did you have an appointment? No.
Instead, his secretary is some goth girl that throws parties after hours.
This guy in my homeroom claims he's practiced with the Mets. I need to find out if he's lying.
He's lying.
But it's like, boom, like he's now on a real case.
And he's bad at it.
Somebody murdered my boyfriend.
Seriously?
Pretty seriously. He was stabbed 17 times.
And you root for him, too, because, I mean, you really shouldn't. He probably should have taken a different career path, but his parents are condescending to him, his brother, his sister-in-laws, or whoever, that dinner scene.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You still doing the detective thing?" And he says, "I've solved over 300 mysteries." And it's just that use of the word mysteries.
Right.
Like, it harkens back to kids, and an adult saying that makes it funny.
Yeah, it gets you on his, even though he's pathetic, it gets you on his side because it has that underdog quality to it.
Underdog, yes. Yeah. And you're kind of rooting for him even though he's, you know, self-loathing and pathetic. And he goes to confront the leader of the Red Shoe Gang.
Oh, yes.
And
long setups for abrupt payoffs. There's a few of those in this, yeah.
And it keeps seeming like they're going to open the closet, but they don't. And then you sneeze and give yourself away.
Oh my God, that's adorable. Bill, come and look at this.
He talks about when you sneak into a house and you hide in the closet.
Yes, the closet bits.
And there's an extended scene where he's stuck in the closet all day.
Yeah. When he was a kid, he solved the mystery of who robbed Hepburn's candy store.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's given a lifetime supply of ice cream by the owner, and he's still cashing it in.
The owner just looks at him with complete disdain.
Yeah, and he's ashamed.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and there's just this moment, he's like, you know, he hands him his ice cream.
A few years ago, I heard my roommate talking about me when he thought I wasn't home, and he called me a detective, in quotes. I could hear him doing this with his fingers.
Very sure-handed direction by what seems to be a first-time director, and hats off to the editing as well for knowing the exact frame to drop in the end title.
Precision, yes.
Precision editing to make the joke resonate and to save the whole film.
Yeah.
I mean, not that the film was in danger or needed to be saved, but it encapsulated the exact tone.
It's the culmination of the conflicting tones of the movie.
Yes.
The absolute perfect note to end the movie on. This goes along with what we keep saying, is that there's good stuff out there on streaming. You have to find it, because it's in a sea of, an ocean of all these different movies.
Right.
And this is a gem.
Yeah.
That people should see.
It is one of my favorite films so far this year.
Here comes the kid detective.
Someone's following us.
Somebody's testing me.
Yeah, so when we find more gem movies on streaming, maybe we'll come back and just recommend that one movie, give you a little bit of information about it, and say go out and watch it. And tell them Mike and Jay sent you, and get a coupon for a free small popcorn and small soda at your next visit to an AMC theater.
And a free subscription to Quibi.
Now that Armie Hammer's agent, management, and fans have all abandoned him, he really is the Lone Ranger.
That was okay.